Today I have the first light from a new company, Vezerlezer, with the ED10, and I have no idea if I'm saying that company name correctly or not. This is an 18650 based light with an SST40 LED on board, USB-C charging here on the back, and a side-mounted E-switch on the front. Thanks to Vezerlezer for sending this one to me to review and providing a 30% discount for you guys, the viewer, if you're interested till the end of the year. That discount will be down in the description below, along with the links to all my social media pages, so check that out if you're interested and not already following. Here is the packaging the light comes in. It's a nice, attractive packaging, green and black combination. I'm a sucker for green, so I like the way this looks. And it lets you know that it's a 6500 Kelvin light, 220 lumens, 305 meters of throw, and it gives some nice statistics on the back, a little chart like we're used to seeing here, and tells you what it includes, which I'll go over quickly. You've got the manual here, and it's a pretty extensive manual. You've got a branded lanyard here and an extra O-ring, a USB-A to USB-C charging cable. You get the light itself. It comes with a 2600 milliamp hour battery, which I've got inside, button top, standard, and then you've got the pocket clip, which came pre-installed. Let's talk about construction and design here. The ED10 isn't breaking any new ground in terms of design, but what it does pretty well. I'm only going to hit on the high points here. The machining and anodizing are what I'd expect. Nothing really bad here. Some of the edges aren't super well chamfered. And maybe a little bit sharp is the only thing I'd maybe say. This tail cap is flat and it's just begging for a magnet, but currently it is non-magnetic. And there are quite a few markings on the light here. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's just a lot of markings in my opinion, and they're kind of interesting. I believe they're like a silk screen before the anodizing process, because I can scratch a little bit underneath here and it's not black. You end up getting the bare aluminum, so that's kind of something maybe a little bit different, whereas a lot of manufacturers will laser on their markings. The body has a nice spiral to it. We saw this from the Claris ST15R that I reviewed a while back, and I really like the look of that. It doesn't provide the most grip in your hand, but I like it other than just your traditional knurling that you see on a flashlight here with like this convoy. You can put the pocket clip on either end of the tube here, but the tube is non-reversible. You've got springs on both ends, which I'll roll in pictures of, that you can see. Looking at the head here, you've got a metal switch here with an LED indicator in the middle of the button like we're used to seeing. You've got some heat sinks here. These are more for style than anything. You've got your USB-C charging port underneath the cover here, and it's a good cover. It fits nicely and stays out of the way. The anti-roll ring is really large on this one and does a great job here. And you can see the bezel there. It is one piece. You've got a glass lens and then the reflector. One kind of interesting point here is that the reflector easily unscrews, which is great to see. And then your lens itself doesn't just come out, it's actually threaded. So that's not something you see all the time. And this one's easy to see down and modify if that is something you wish to do here. Retention, you have the lanyard that the light comes with here. You can attach it on the tail cap here or on the pocket clip if you wish. So that's nice to see. And then you've got the pocket clip, which is how I use most lights, as you guys know. And this is a decent pocket clip. It's got decent strength here and it's reasonably deep carry, as you can see here. But this little shelf where I take issue, you can see that it kind of sticks up a little, and in my experimentation and carrying this light, I found that my pants like to get stuck there and I kind of had to help it over. I really think that should point down to create more of a ramp to get it into the pocket clip. I don't know if mine's misformed, but I can probably easily fix this with a pair of pliers, I think. I measured the length at 4.4 inches or 112 millimeters, maximum diameter at 1.1 inches or 28 millimeters at the switch area up front here, minimum diameter at 0.96 or 24.5 millimeters. Weight with a cell and clip was 4.59 ounces or 130 grams. The light is IPX68 water rated and drop rated to 1.5 meters. So let's talk about the LED and beam here. The light is running that SST40 LED in cool white. My Opal metered the tint at 6076 Kelvin with a CRI of 67, so slightly more neutral than what they claim the tint is. The beam profile is what I'd call normal. It's pretty primarily center focused with a minimal amount of spill, no strange artifacts or anything negative there. PWM is present on all modes, and it's a very rapid PWM, so you're unlikely to actually see any of it with your eye or camera. Parasitic drain was measured at 4.6 milliamps, so that's quite high. When you do make contact, the front LED comes on, so that's part of the high drain, but I did hold it till after that LED went off, and it was still pretty high. That's something I will talk to Vezerlezer about. I know they're really accepting of feedback and looking to improve things, so hopefully that's one of the things they do improve. So until then, if you do pick this one up, mechanically lock out the light. It's simple, just twist the tail cap a little bit, and you can see it doesn't have any contact, so it doesn't turn on. Official outputs are listed as turbo of 2200 lumens, high at 1400 lumens, medium at 560 lumens, low at 128 lumens, eco at 30 lumens, and moon at 1 lumen. And I am looking at getting into a lumen tube, guys. It's calibrated, so I'll be able to give you my own readings on that once that arrives. Okay, here are my night shots for the Vezerlezer ED10. This is on moon 1 lumen here. Here is eco 30 lumens. This is running that SST40 LED in cool white. Here is low 128 lumens. You can see it hits the neighbor's fence. Here is medium 560 lumens. You can see it's pretty cool white. Hot center, decent throw, but decent spill as well, nice beam shape. Here is high 1400 lumens, throws pretty nicely. It's not super cool white. And then here's turbo 2200 lumens. Here's back to high, and this is kind of a demonstration of the UI. I was stepped there, and if I push again, it steps down, so it steps up to high, press again, and it'll step down to low. The light also has a ramping UI here, and it's a fast ramping UI, and this goes all the way up to turbo. You can see it throws pretty nicely there. I didn't write down the exact output numbers there, and it's a fast ramp down as well. So here is the Vezerlezer ED10 in turbo 2200 lumens, and then here is the Olight Warrior Mini 2. This is running the same LED, the SST40, but this is only produced in 1750, and you can see the different beam shape and brightness outputs in the Olight here versus the ED10. It is brighter noticeably and throws better noticeably than the Olight, and is considerably cheaper too. So here is the Vezerlezer ED10 versus the Olight Warrior Mini 2. For my relative output runtime graphs, I used the Vezerlezer ED10s with the included 2600 milliamp hour battery. Turbo lasted 2 minutes and 40 seconds, while peak heat came in at about 3 minutes at 51C. You can see active thermal protection on the light working throughout the runtime as it takes little steps up and down to keep the temps regulated just under 50C before eventually turning off as the power runs out at an hour 40. In my relative output comparison graphs, where I'm basically comparing the runtime curves to one another, not total output, turbo and high look very similar, with high being slightly longer in runtime by about 5 minutes, but you wouldn't expect medium mode to look like this. Medium mode is more of a direct drive look. It doesn't look like active thermal protection really is kicking in there. The light doesn't get that hot, so that might be part of it too, but it's a curve that's unlike the others, so that's something else I have mentioned to them and they're looking at. So UI here has 2 modes. It's stepped or ramping, and to switch between them, you just hold the power button on for 5 seconds when the light's off, and it flashes like you can see there twice. And now I am in stepped mode. I was in ramping before. So in stepped mode, when you turn it on, the light will remember where you previously were, and in this case, it ramps up all the way up and stops. I let off again and it ramps down. So just a little bit different operation, doesn't cycle over like you see some lights do. And in this stepped mode, you only go to high. To get to turbo, you have to double click, which is something that's a little bit different. And in any mode, you've got 3 clicks for strobe. So let me go to ramping and show you that. So this light also has ramping, as I mentioned before. Let me start all the way at the bottom. And it's a very fast ramp, almost too fast, as you saw from my night shots there. And ramping does not go to turbo. You've got to double click to go to turbo again, and that's not super common, but not terrible either. The ramping curve here isn't quite linear. The distance from the moon to medium seems to be less than medium to high without turbo there. So that's kind of something I think I'd slow down just a hair for them, but it's better than ramping that's too slow. So let's talk recharging here. You've got that USB-C port cover in the back there, opposite the E-switch. And once you plug in a cable, your button lights up and you get your charging in. Red when charging and green when charged. And this does go yellow as well for some different power levels, and that can be found in the manual. Unfortunately, C2C charging here does not work, so stick to the included A to C cable. That also means USB-C PD does not work. And the charge curve here looked fine. It's quite flat and during the constant current phase for 2 hours and 32 minutes. Not a very fast peak though, at 1 amp maximum charging speed roughly. Low voltage protection's around 2.94 volts, and that's with a caveat that the light has a firmware bug that seems to stop regardless of battery voltage at 3 volts pretty much. That is something they're working on and will improve in future models hopefully. And when fully charged, the light is 4.16 volts. So my final thoughts are that I really didn't know what I was going to expect from a new brand from their first product. And I'd say they have a pretty solid offering here for their first attempt. The exterior design is pretty nice. I like the size of the light. Overall, it's not too big. Sometimes 18650 lights can get kind of unnecessarily large, and this isn't that. I like the knurling here, the milling, I guess I should say. It's something different. I like that. It's not a ton of grip, so keep that in mind. The beam properties are solid too. Nothing really negative to say other than it's cool white, which, you know, isn't my favorite. That said, there's room for improvement here. That tail cap, I think, is just begging to have a magnet with how flat it is. The pocket clip has that little shelf that tends to catch pans and needs to be bent down. I think they went overboard with the branding and labeling on this light. It just doesn't need that much writing. And I wish the battery was a larger size. 2600 milliamp hours really isn't a lot for 2022 and in this price range for what they're asking MSRP. And the light really should be capable of C2C charging, and its parasitic drain is quite high. There are those firmware flaws that I mentioned in the UI section that another reviewer found. Personally, I didn't really see them, and it's not that big a deal. It's nothing that would be a showstopper for me. Ramping here is maybe a touch too fast, in my opinion, but I'd rather it be too fast than too slow. So in all, a decent first attempt for a new model, and I think the UI here is easy to use, and the beam suited just fine for like EDC and general uses. If they offered LED tint options, I think they could be a serious competitor for brands like Sofern and Workos for the quality budget offerings. With the discount code that Vezerlezer has provided, I think that puts the ED10 about where it should be price-wise, but the original MSRP is just a little bit too high to be competitive. So guys, let me know what you think of this light. I'm guessing you probably don't have one, but if you do, I'd love to hear about what your thoughts are after using it. As always, I appreciate you guys watching these reviews, subscribing to the channel, liking the videos, and I will see you on my next review soon. Thanks for watching.